Hi folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis here at Prepared Homestead. Today my chore is bagging up some bulk dry goods that we have and sealing them up for long-term storage. And I thought I'd bring you along with me to show you how I do it. This isn't the only way to do it. This is just my way, and I wanted to show you in case you're never done it before or you're looking to try something different. So, to get us started, I have buckets. These are not food grade buckets. Typically, the ones that are different color are not. Most of your food grade buckets are white. But I don't really care because the food is not going to be in contact with the bucket. The food is in contact with the Mylar bags. So when I'm putting food in Mylar bags, I don't care personally. Now, I'm not going to use something that's got a bunch of tar in the bottom of it or something that has the potential for leaching in. But when there are brand new buckets like this, I'm not so worried about it. Now, I do have, would only use food grade buckets to store food in a short-term situation, meaning you want to put your flour in it or your oats or whatever that you're using out of. I certainly would only use a food grade bucket. To clarify that, because I'm sure there'll be some that'll jump in with that comment. Once you have your buckets, you get these 5-gallon Mylar bags. You can get them on Amazon or other places. I'll leave a link if you're interested in getting them from Amazon. In my experience, that's about the cheapest place to get them. You typically get 10 of these, and you get 10 of these oxygen absorbers, which are very important to put in, and it keeps, in case there's they don't quite seal up, or if there's still any air in it, it helps absorb that oxygen that's still left in there. So I do that. Then, of course, you put the food in, and right now I'm doing whole wheat berries. And then how I seal it up is I use a flat iron. So any of you guys out there, steal one from your wife, or if you have teenage daughters, that sort, or just go buy your own. It doesn't take anything fancy. You don't need a fancy one. Just a cheap flat iron works really well. I've seen it done other ways with an actual clothes iron and 2x4s and stuff, but I find this to be the easiest. So that's what I use. And this one here, I have no idea what it cost. It was one of the girls here in the house. They got a new one, and this was just their old cheap one, and they said I could have it. So that's what I use that for. Now, you have the Mylar bag, you put it in the bucket. There's already a little in here from a previous bag. Typically, on your dry goods, like your wheat, your beans, your rice, you're going to be able to fit somewhere between 30 and 33 pounds in a 5-gallon bucket. Now, that's going to change if it's oatmeal. Oatmeal is much lighter, so the amount of oatmeal is different. But when you're dealing with, like today, I'm dealing with 25-pound bags, I know that I'm actually going to get about 30 to 33 pounds in a bucket. So I've already got a little bit in the bottom. Once you put some in, you don't want to fill it up immediately. You want to put anywhere between a third to half in, and then do this. Kind of help get it settled. And then I'm going to add some more. Should have already had the bag open. Made it easier for the video, right? But you're getting the raw footage, unedited. Open it up. Pour some more in there. Try not to spill too much, but it happens. Got about half there now, and so I'm going to do this again. That helps, because you've got a bag that's not round trying to fit in a round bucket. So I'm trying to get it to settle good so that I can get the most wheat in there. Now, when you go to fill it up, you want to leave at least 1.5 inches or so from the top. So you don't want to fill it up to where it's right at the edge of the bucket. You want to leave enough room for all of this to be kind of rolled up and folded down and have some space there. So I'm not quite there. Need a little bit more. That's about it on that one. All right. give it a good final pat down shake. And you take one of these and put it in the top. And this is where you start your sealing. Now, I like to seal it as close to the top as I can. That way, if I need to cut it open and get into it, I've still got space to re-seal it. I have seen folks seal it down towards the bottom. To me, that's a lot of waste because once it's open, it's open. But doing it this way, sealing it towards the top, you cut that off to open it, you can always re-seal it again. With this, it's almost on high. This one you can change the temperature. Some of them it's just high, medium, low. So I would go with the high temperature. This one, I think it takes probably about 6-7 seconds for each try, and you have to work your way across. You know, they do make a machine that does this, but they're much more expensive than something like this. You want to make sure you're getting all the way to the edge so that you're getting a really good seal. That's very important. And that what I do is I overlap where it's sealing. I overlap it a little to ensure that I'm getting a good seal. Now, of course, this thing's too short, as you can see, to go all the way across. So then I do just a little zigzag kind of thing. Again, making sure that I'm overlapping my seals. So some of you might be wondering, what in the world am I doing this for? If you're new to this, most dry grains like rice and wheat berries that can be turned into flour, and then also things like beans, have anywhere between a 30 and 40-year shelf life if they are properly stored. And so doing this, you are properly storing them so that you can have food that will last 30 to 40 years. And these are things that are quite cheap. You know, it's not too expensive to purchase a large quantity of rice or wheat berries or pinto beans or oats or corn, different things like that. You know, buy them in dry bulk like that. They're really cheap when you can consider how much food you're getting. But you want to be able to make it last. You don't want bugs to get in it, moisture, things like that. So in doing this, you're ensuring that you've got food that's going to last for a very long time. And I like the buckets. They're easy to stack. Definitely mark and date them. Now, going back to this, I've left about a 2-inch gap at the end. I've seen people do it in the middle. I do it at the end. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. Now I have a shop vac with a little kind of blade-looking nozzle on the end of it. You stick this in here. I'm going to turn it on. Probably be too noisy for you to hear me talk. So what it's going to do is going to vacuum down and try to watch. As it's vacuuming down, I'm going to slowly slide this out and try to get that hot iron in right underneath it so that it can seal. I realize in doing this, I'm probably not getting every single bit of oxygen out of it. But it's got that big oxygen absorber, and as long as it's sealed off good, that thing will continue to absorb and suck it down even more. But in doing this, it does create quite a good vacuum. And I'm quite confident that it's a good seal. So anyways, let's get this started. Kind of work it to get all the air out. And that's it. You now have about 30 pounds of sealed up long-term wheat berries. For those of you that don't know, wheat berries is how you make flour. Flour is ground wheat, but it doesn't have a very long shelf life. 6 to 9 months and it's going to start going rancid. Whereas if you store the whole wheat berries that again will last 30 to 40 years properly stored, now, of course, you're going to need a grinding mill, a flour mill, and a normal grinder isn't going to work. You definitely need a flour mill to convert this into a flour that you can bake with. And then that's about it. You're done. You're going to put a lid on it, which my lids are way over there. And then you want to date it and put what the product is that's on there. That way you're not trying to figure out what it is. So make sure you do that, certainly. Then they're easy to store. I still would try to store them in as much of a temperature-controlled environment as possible. So, if you've got a shed that in the summertime gets super hot because it doesn't have any ventilation or shade, and it may get 110 plus degrees inside that, sitting out in the sun, I would not store these in there, because even though they're sealed up, drastic temperatures will affect the food product for long term. So I would certainly try to keep them in the most climate controlled environment. Doesn't mean it has to necessarily be in your house in the air conditioning or heater, but try to keep them as a constant temperature. 60 to 70 degrees is really perfect for this kind of stuff. And I understand that's not always possible. So for those of you that are wondering why I'm even doing this, well, this is long-term food. But there's things going on right now that I'm sure most of you are probably aware of. And if you're not, you need to be getting aware of. And it's this coronavirus. And it is definitely within our shores. The former head of the FDA said this morning that they believe that most definitely that this coronavirus has been spreading within the United States for several weeks now, maybe a couple of months. And he said that there's most definitely thousands of people that already have it, and they just don't know it. They may think it's a cold or a flu, and they haven't been tested. I know there's a lot of talk that this thing is not that bad, it's not much worse than the flu, and that is not true at all, folks. Not true. I don't want to go into the details because it's just a lot of numbers. But the common flu has a fatality rate of anywhere between 0.01% and 0.1%. And this has, at very minimum, a 0.2%. And that was a number that China put out, which their numbers are most likely not correct. And that number, they admitted, came from creating an average of all their provinces and all their numbers. Whereas in Europe and in the Middle East, the mortality rate on this is somewhere between 3 and 7%, which is extremely high. Even 2%, this thing is 20 times as deadly as the common flu. And you have to factor in that it's vastly more infectious. Common flu is infection rate is around 8%. This thing's around 70%. So this thing has the potential to be a lot worse. And I know that many of you, including our news media and our government, has been saying for weeks, yeah, but we're different, we're America, we've got this under control. Well, guess what? Right now, I would say that we look almost the worst or the most unprepared of all the nations. Originally we had these quick test kits the CDC put out, and they found out that those things were faulty. And they said that they were coming out with some new ones. Well, it was announced today that the new ones are contaminated. There was a case in, just today it was announced, I believe, in San Antonio, Texas, where someone was quarantined with coronavirus. They tested them, said that they had been cured of it, and released them, and then realized that no, the other test that they took showed that that person was positive. So they had to go find him and bring him back into quarantine. While they were out of quarantine, they went to the local mall, they stayed at a hotel, they did a little shopping, running around, so they had the potential to contaminate a lot of people. So how this is being run is quite awful for us to say that we have the world's greatest healthcare system. They're not testing people, not anywhere near enough. And there's just so much to it that it's really difficult to go into it in one video. But there's already signs of people really kind of starting to panic. And I don't think it's full-blown panic. I think it's those people that are a little bit more awake than others. Not fully awake, but they're a little bit more. And they're starting to see the handwriting on the wall. But I still believe that the masses haven't quite finally woken up to this. And when they do, that's when you're going to see mass panic. That's when you're going to see food shelves empty completely out. But guess what, folks? We're already seeing it. I've got pictures from stores in LA, San Francisco, Seattle, New York, New Jersey, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Dallas, Texas, where you can go into stores and the shelves are bare. They're out of toilet paper, they're out of rice, they're out of bottled water, hand sanitizer, alcohol, all sorts of things. Now sure, those stores could get resupplied, but a lot of those supplies could be cut because of China in the mess that they're in if any of those products are coming from overseas. And there's going to be more people, because I think the people right now that are doing panic shopping is just a small percentage of the population. When the rest of America finally wakes up to what the potential is with this thing, it's going to be mass panic, I believe. And so that's why you should start stocking up. You should have started stocking up weeks ago. You may still have some time, but things are starting to really thin out at a lot of the larger cities. And sure, that's where it's going to happen first, but I think the smaller cities and the more rural communities are in fact going to feel this. It may take a little bit longer to trickle down to them, but I think it's going to happen. So I want to encourage everyone, if you can possibly, I don't want to panic anyone, I don't want to get everyone scared, but if you have the ability to stock up, even if you've been a prepper and you're like, man, I got food supplies and everything, go through it and reevaluate it and figure out if you have any weak links in your supplies and stock up on. And that's what I've done. I've evaluated and what we needed to kind of work on. That's what we've done over the last few weeks. And you know, you still have a little time left, but I have a feeling that this thing could get out of control. And you know, again, a lot of people think it's just not happening that fast. If you go back and you look at the history of the Spanish flu, if you look at the history of the swine flu, it took quite a while, 6 to 9 months, before it built up big enough and infected enough of the population to where we really started seeing a lot of casualties. And we're just not there yet. But once we get to that point, we get to the point that the casualty numbers are double digits every day and possibly even triple digits every day, people are going to really kind of lose it. There's going to be a lot of panic, I feel. The hospitals could easily become overwhelmed. If you look at the lowest numbers of 2% infection rate and the lowest numbers of 18% of them needing to seek hospitalization treatment, that's somewhere around 24 million people. In the United States, if you add up every hospital, we only have about 920 hospital beds. So 24 million people, they're not going to have enough hospital beds. Even if that 24 million is spread out over a couple of months' time, it's still going to overwhelm our system. And when people start seeing that kind of stuff, it's going to create some serious panic. So you need to be doing what you can. Now, for those of you that's looking for long-term freeze-dried food, you know, I don't like to do a lot of selling on this channel, but I do have a deal worked with a company by Patriot Supply. I've talked to them. They are being overwhelmed with orders, and some of their products are 6 to 8 weeks backlogged. So if you want to get some of that food, the long-term freeze-dried food, they have excellent products. And for those of you that either have a meatless diet, or maybe you separate your meat and dairy, some people eat that way, they do not put any meat products, or at least they keep it separated, so you have to buy the meat and then the non-meat products separately. They produce a really good quality freeze-dried product, and it's made here in America, and the company's a family-owned company. I'll leave a link below if you're interested. But trust me, if that is something that you're wanting to purchase, you need to get on it, because people are buying that stuff like crazy, including governments. And that's what they're saying, that their biggest purchaser of this stuff are governments are buying it for their stockpiles. So, folks, I'm not trying to panic anyone. I'm just saying these things hoping that maybe it'll, make it a little easier on some of you folks later on down the road if maybe you get a little bit more prepared. So anyways, that's how you do buckets of food and a little bit of update on what's going on with this coronavirus. All right, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.